The James Show Podcast.
Why do people send me this stuff? You know, the WNBA shouldn't be making this much news. The WNBA is supposed to be something that's kind of in the background and not talked about for the third time in the last week on the James Show. Now, they had their All-Star game last week, and they came out and they were wearing "Pay Us What You Owe Us" shirts. So we kind of had to talk about that. That was a beautiful economics lesson, and we all got a good giggle out of it. Ha, 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 ha. If anything, you should be cutting a check to the WNBA because y'all lose money. We all got it. We all knew the jokes that were coming. We enjoyed them anyway, tried to move on. And then people kept sending me the video of some girl getting her wig snatched during a game. Like, isn't that funny? No, that's not funny. You don't see wigs getting snatched before? So I don't know where you people look. I'm not a fan of the WNBA. I haven't watched one complete game. I probably never will. But I don't wish it to die. I don't wish it to be a failure. I mean, that'd be kind of nice if girls, if they cared enough about basketball to support a league. Cool. Now, if they don't care enough to support their own league after 20 years of trying and it has to be continually subsidized by the NBA, hey, that's the NBA's choice. If they want to buy this sort of, political correct shield against criticism, let them do it. It's a whatever. I'm indifferent to the WNBA. I have apathy, not antipathy. But I know people are going to start sending me this probably about right now, so I might as well get it out of the way. Someone threw an adult toy on the court during a game. Now, you're hearing the announcers talk about this not knowing what it is. You can't see. It's not that big. So you see this green thing. It's like a neon green plastic thing that kind of bounces around. And yeah, it looks a little oblong, but you can't tell that it's a that. But listen to them when they find out. They're just so disgusted by the fact that it's an adult toy.
Hayes gets blocked by Maya Caldwell. Something flies on the court, actually, from the crowd. The officials will say they will continue play as that goes off the fingertips of the Valkyries. And you can see the object, the block right there. And the object comes, that green thing bounces, and it goes to the sideline. We're not sure where it came from. No room for any of that type of activity. Yeah, and no one's picked the object up yet. You guys go, oh my gosh, okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Inappropriate. Oh, get him out of here, whoever it is.
Get him out of here. Kick him out. That is so inappropriate. Do you people have no sense of humor? Because if that was me, or if that was any other guy, like one of the guys from the ticket or whatever, you'd have to stop us from giggling. We'd be over there laughing like little children. We would be like, oh, this is inappropriate. Get them out of here. Whoever did this, they need to leave immediately. Plus, you're not thinking like a good little capitalist pig. Your worldview has got you just digging around in your own belly button so hard that you're missing a huge marketing opportunity. So what you're seeing there is an adult toy that's meant to replace the organs of someone who's not allowed to play in the WNBA. See how gracefully I did that? But what constituency is better for the toy industry? Look, I know it's kind of stereotypical, but it's also just pragmatic and functional. What group needs those toys more than other groups? It's about as nice as I can say, but you know what I'm getting at, right? Oh, this is totally inappropriate. I don't know. I think of all the constituencies in America that could be divided up into various ways, that might be the most appropriate thing to be thrown on the court. What do you think, that they didn't know what that was at the WNBA? You don't think every single one of them had... Let's not get myself in trouble. But think about it like this. Remember just a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago, Deion Sanders has the press conference and he says, I now depend on Depends. And I bet you thought this. I thought this. Garrett even thought this, and he's slow. We're like, oh, wouldn't that be a great marketing opportunity for Depends? I bet you their sales are going to go up. They should bring Deion on as a spokesman. And guess what they've already done? Yeah, they brought Deion on as a spokesman. In fact, it's that obvious. I mean, who's the most high-profile guy battling urinary incontinence today? Well, it's definitely Deion Sanders. Who are the most famous adult toy enthusiasts in American society? This is so hard to do without getting in trouble. The WNBA. Exactly. There's a beautiful partnership that would happen if you people would just stop being so sensitive and you would drop your walls and just be vulnerable and enjoy life for 5 seconds. Number one, you'll be happier. I'm happy about this. You're all, oh, this is inappropriate. You need to get them out of here. I'm laughing. I'm enjoying life more than you are. Secondly, you're missing a beautiful opportunity here, an obvious opportunity here. This is like an elephant size. This is Hannibal coming over the Alps with 35 elephants or whatever it was. And I'm not making fun of the size of these women or whatever. They're fantastic athletes. But also the constituency that happens to be concentrated in people who are either in the WNBA or, love sports in general. And the people who need the services of similar toys, which they were saying it was big. I'm not compared to me, obviously. But calm down. Have a sense of humor. And take advantage of the situation instead of being offended. And you'll enjoy your life a whole lot more, ladies. And not all ladies, just the ladies that are watching this game. Oh, I'm so offended. Stop it. Right now, we're going to talk to, from the Heritage Foundation, it's Wilson Beaver, who's going to help us. He does a lot of defense budgeting, NATO policy at Heritage Foundation. And Trump and Putin don't seem to be getting along anymore. And now there's been a new peace deal deadline. Is this going to work? If so, how is this different than every other deadline that Putin's faced?
Well, hi, James. Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
Hey, Wilson.
I would just start with President Trump's goals haven't changed whatsoever. From the beginning, he said what he wants is a ceasefire followed by negotiations. And he always acknowledged that there was a variety of ways he might get there, different tactics, different strategies. Unfortunately, Putin has refused to negotiate. He's refused all of Trump's offers of mediation and ceasefire. And so now Trump's reaching into the toolbox and looking for other things he might do, including secondary sanctions and allowing Europeans to buy more weapons from us to send to Ukraine.
So do we know what Putin wants? What could we give him that would make him stop?
I mean, he's been offered a pretty fair deal. It seems like he wants to finish his conquest of the 4 regions that he has announced as annexed to Russia. But at this point, it seems like a lot of people in the administration are thinking that it's going to be pressure that brings them to the negotiating table. The most recent bit of secondary sanctions are targeting India, which is the major buyer of Russian gas, and it's fueling the Russian war machine. Europe and the United States have mostly stopped buying Russian gas, but India is still buying a ton. So if we were able to get the Indians to stop doing that, the Russians could run out of money and not be able to continue their war.
Now, that's interesting. What else could could Trump do if Russia doesn't make a deal for a ceasefire within the next 10 days?
Well, India's only one example. There's a couple other countries that we're having discussions with. We're saying, look, we all need to make sure that Russia doesn't have the money it needs to keep this war going so that they feel the economic pressure, which is already happening. But they feel the economic pressure and they realize that they're not going to be able to continue to sustain operations against the Ukrainians. That way they say, okay, fine, ceasefire, and we can start the negotiations.
I remember people saying that 2-3 years ago, but here he is still able to carry on despite sanctions and being told that, we're going to choke him out with sanctions. Would more sanctions actually choke him out, or can he just keep this going as long as he wants?
So that's a very fair point. One of the big differences that President Biden's military aid to Ukraine promised for as long as it takes to regain all territory, which is unfortunately militarily unrealistic. It's very unlikely the Ukrainians can retake every inch of their territory, and that's just because Russia's a much bigger, richer, and better equipped military. But the Ukrainians have overperformed, and they've held on to their sovereignty, and they've fought the Russians to more or less a standstill. The Russians are only gaining feet, meters each day. It's a slow grind. So the difference now is that President Trump is starting with a far more realistic goal of a ceasefire along current lines of control and not an endless war that promises the Ukrainians no matter whatever it takes.
All right, we're talking with Wilson Beaver from the Heritage Foundation. This new deal with the EU includes a whole lot of energy spending and defense spending, and I believe both of those are of concern for Russia. Every barrel of oil they buy from us, they're not buying from Russia. And most of the military equipment they get from us is going to at least be aimed at Russia. So this trade deal seems like a big chip in the Ukraine-Russia war.
For sure. So one, it's a huge, great deal for the United States. 15% tariff on European goods and no tariff on our goods. So it's a great deal. The Europeans, after one, pressure from President Trump, and two, having seen how much worse their local security environment is getting, are finally stepping up and spending a lot more on their militaries. Some of the richest economies, like the Germans, the French, Scandinavia, are promising major defense increases over the next couple of years, and they've already done some of these. They're already moving in the right direction. Frankly, Germany by itself has an economy about something like 3 or 4 times as large as that of Russia. Russia's economy is only the size of Italy or Spain. So if the Europeans do hit these new defense spending goals, they will easily be able to take the majority of responsibility for deterring Russia in Europe. That way America can focus elsewhere and we can reduce our commitments on the continent.
Well, if Russia believed that, wouldn't they come to the table immediately?
Well, I think they've definitely seen some very negative trends, but maybe they're thinking it's long term. For example, Sweden and Finland, both historically neutral, both joined NATO as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And yeah, all these countries like Germany that had been lackluster spenders now see Russia as a threat and are spending a ton of money. Long term, this is absolutely going to blow back on the Russians in a major way. They miscalculated.
Well, Wilson Beaver, I appreciate the insights from a guy at the Heritage Foundation. How do we find your work outside of WBAP, sir?
Oh, just Heritage Foundation, Wilson Beaver.
Thank you very much. Coming up next, economic talk. Part of what makes me a good talk radio host is that I'm a little brother. So I really enjoyed pestering people who deserve it. I had a lot of practice on my poor older sister growing up, but it translates pretty well into being a talk radio host because I have a memory that's longer than a goldfish. And one thing that you and I both learned from Rush Limbaugh was the drive-by nature of the media to not tell the whole story. And one of the things that I always found so compelling about his show is he would circle back to stories that happened 6 months ago or 3 months ago or a year ago. And it's more important to review a story than to look forward and predict as part of your story. Do you see this every single year? Whoa, the National Weather Service says the number of hurricanes predicted for this year is going to be above normal. We're looking for an above average season. It's going to be pretty catastrophic. We're talking about billions of dollars of damage. No. What you should be doing is saying, hey, right now we are 2 months into the hurricane season. Is it more or less than the dire predictions that we saw 2 months ago? Oh, really? It's under that? No headline for that, though, even though it's a more accurate statement. Even though you were told there would be a whole lot of hurricanes over the next few months, now that the few months have passed and there haven't been as many storms as promised, they haven't been as catastrophic as promised, which story's more accurate? Which story's better journalism? So I don't just do this to gloat either. I do this to prove a point. When we look at the economy rocking along, did you hear yesterday's show? Because yesterday's show was predicting half of what just was what came out today. Because the big number that came out today was the gross domestic product number. The GDP number for the second quarter came out positive. So that means several things. If you're new to economics, this is how we measure if an economy is growing or shrinking. And if you have 2 quarters, that's a 3-month span. If you have 2 quarters in a row where the GDP is negative, you consider, well, that's a shrinking economy. It's therefore triggers the layman definition of a recession. And I remember what was predicted earlier this year. Let's go back in time. Let's go way back in time. Let's go all the way back to January. And the great Jasmine Crockett was predicting a recession. Oh, I'm sorry. This is February 19th of this year. She saw what was going on in the economy. She saw what was coming up with the tariff battles. That was already starting. All that talk was already starting. We're already starting with the Doge cuts. People were getting laid off left and right. And Jasmine Crockett looked at the lay of the land and predicted that there would be a recession, that 6 months later, we'd have 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. That got disproven with the number today.
We are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you if you are unable to find a job, because I am telling people we are headed towards a recession because the United States government is the 15th largest employer in the world. And so firing those that work for the federal government isn't going to necessarily create new jobs in private industry. In fact, Southwest Airlines, based in my district, just announced for the very first time in its entire existence that they are doing a layoff of approximately 15% of their workforce. If you pay attention, the signs are there. And I'm not telling you to be an alarmist. I'm telling you because I want to be honest with the American people. And my background, believe it or not, I was a business major, and none of this looks good for us right now.
Now, I don't want to just gloat and say, ha, I was right, you were wrong. Ha, Scott Bessent was right, or Kevin Hassett was right, you were wrong. I also want to point out, I'm glad that she was specific, because she was saying you can't just lay off hundreds of thousands of people from government and have them expect to find new jobs immediately. Well, hang on a second. Now, we've just proven that can happen. You can lay off hundreds of thousands of people from the federal government, and GDP won't be negatively affected. Now, why is that? Now, you were already wrong in your prediction of a recession, so maybe you should listen to the other side that got the prediction right and learn this lesson. Government workers do not add to the GDP. Government workers do not create wealth. For every government worker that's getting paid, resources have to be confiscated from the actual productive people in society and used on this government worker. Now, if that government worker goes away and these other people are allowed to control the resources that otherwise went to the government worker, it was spent in a more productive, judicious, with a higher return on investment path, then yeah, the economy benefits. In fact, if you want the economy to grow even more, maybe we should fire even more government workers. I don't just want to prove her wrong. I want other people to see this and realize, oh, well, if that's wrong, then I need to change my worldview in this specific line of thinking. Because a lot of people can understand the metaphor of the economy like pulling on a wagon. Just imagine there's like a big chuck wagon, like in 1883. And me and you and Garrett and a few Bruce, we have ropes and we're out front and we're pulling on the wagon. For every government worker, you're taking someone off the ropes that's pulling and you're putting them in the wagon. Now, that's just more of a burden I have to pull, because now this guy isn't doing anything productive. Now he's not pulling the wagon. He's one of the people being pulled by the wagon pullers. And so when you take people out of the wagon, whether they start pulling or not, things get easier. What would be more ideal is if they got out of the wagon and started pulling, which a bunch of them have already done, because you're not just going to sit around for 6 months being unemployed. If you can find a decent job, that's probably better for your prospects. So let's learn the lesson here for the people who predicted recession. What did you get wrong? She specifically said you can't fire all these people out of government and expect the economy to grow. We just proved that wrong. Now, can you adjust your economics accordingly? That would be fantastic, to actually not just have to have this goofy little big brother or big sister, little brother fight. How about you adjust your economic worldview a little bit so you don't get it wrong next time? I find it so strange, even being in the media for this long, on what stories get attention that you have to hear about for years and years and years. And some stories seem equally tragic, but they get reported on once and, again, never revisited by the media. Again, with the drive-by media scenario that we were all taught by Rush. But in this one caught my attention. The reason I'm bringing it to you is because it happened twice in the last week. And it happened in your backyard. It happened in Mesquite. Mesquite's not that big of a town. So for Mesquite, this one neighborhood, this one town, to have two shootings, fatal shootings involving a 15-year-old, where I believe the 15-year-old was pulling the trigger. Wasn't it in both of them? See, the details are real sketchy. We don't know a whole lot about it because they're juveniles. And so the newspaper, the TV stations, the police, they rightfully hold some of that info back. But it doesn't happen in certain neighborhoods, but it happens, I don't want to say frequently, more frequently than it should in other neighborhoods. Now, if you're concerned about the well-being of the communities where this is more prevalent, wouldn't this be a huge news story? Wouldn't this be worthy of blocking a highway? Wouldn't this be worthy of some sort of protest or making a foam core sign and y'all organizing on a Saturday or Sunday? Or we have 15-year-olds here. And one of the stories, a 15-year-old shot a 15 and a 16-year-old. And this is like overnight. This isn't at 3:30 in the afternoon. And then a couple days later, pretty much the same story. A 15-year-old and a 16-year-old got in a shootout. And I think there was another 15-year-old involved. Now, this makes my head swim for a couple of reasons. Number one, what 15-year-old is capable of shooting another human being? Wow. Number two, what are they doing out overnight all night? Now, I'm not going to tell you I was an angel. I've snuck out of the house when I was a teenager, too. Didn't go on a shooting spree. It wasn't because I was engaging in a life of crime. Usually just want to go throw toilet paper in someone's yard, right? Pretty innocent stuff. But the other angle, and what I want you to sort of mull around in your head is, where's the parents? Can't we charge them with the crime? I'm not asking what the parents, because what about the parents because they're bad parents? Obviously, they're bad parents. But, we've seen a couple of these stories where the parents get in trouble for a kid that went on a shooting spree. It happened in Michigan. Some guy it was a school shooter, wasn't it? So the parents got in trouble because this guy had mental issues and they didn't lock up their guns, and they pretty much gave him they recklessly allowed him to have access to the weapons that he used to commit these crimes. Well, what about right here? Do we not do it if it is within a certain community? Do we not do it if it's within a certain skin tone? What's the metric? What makes this an important story? Some of the stories so important and some of them not. What makes something that the media reports on for years on end? We still have to hear about the Parkland shooting. We still have to hear about the Uvalde shooting. Not to minimize it, but why don't we hear about these other ones too? Are their lives not as important? I bet you the families of the 16-year-old, the 15-year-old that died in the last week, I bet you they think it's pretty important. But I kind of like the idea of going after the parents for crimes that the kids have done. And I think I surprised some people there because, I don't know, some people that were in Team Red media were thinking, well, this is clearly just being used for political purposes and yada, 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 whatever. I think that'd be interesting if we had the same sort of, fervor in going after the parents when we see, look, if they're too young to be charged as an adult, then the parents are culpable. There is an adult that's culpable. Like Carmelo Anthony going to be charged as an adult? Okay, no problem with the parents there. There's some adult that's being held accountable. It's going to be Carmelo Anthony. But for like these 15-year-olds, these 16-year-olds, are they even going to be charged as an adult? And if not, I think that's when you have to start roping in the parents. Now, this can get complicated real quick because, well, what if the parents aren't in the scene? What if the kid is the adopted by the grandparents? Okay, well, whoever's legally adopted them, they're on the hook. But for those of you who are just staying with your grandparents and your mom's still your legal guardian, she's on the hook. Well, that's not fair. What about dad? What if he's not in the picture? Go find him. Put cuffs on him. Well, I mean, you mean to tell me like just because you get some lady pregnant and you move 5 states away and now you're working in California that you're going to be held culpable for what your bastard kid does in Mesquite? Actually, yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. We talk about how can we incentivize the nuclear family, the creation of the family, having it stick together. And one of the ways is have their negative consequences be attached to these people for the actions of their bastard kids. This guy would have an incentive to not move 5 states away, to be a part of his kid's life, to help raise him. Why? Because if that kid messes up, it's on him. It's his responsibility. But for now, what's the incentive for dad to stick around? If that kid messes up, well, then that's just on the victims who are on the receiving end of the gunshots in Mesquite. That's not very good. See, this would have a great effect on not just crime and not just punishing people after the crime, but preventing these little monsters from being created in the first place. If mom could go to jail for things that her little thug kid did, and other women in the community saw that, well, maybe they'd be a little more judicious about reproduction. Maybe they'd be a little more choosy. Is this going to be a guy who sticks around? Is this going to be a guy who moves up to Minneapolis after he keeps getting arrested in Texas, like George Floyd? This isn't just about the punishment. This is about creating the societal incentives for better behavior that would reduce crime for everyone. The number one predictor on whether or not someone will grow up to be a criminal is whether or not they're born in wedlock and raised by their biological parents or not. And so it's not just about punishing the people who took the life of a 15-year-old in your backyard in Mesquite. It's about setting up the rules so fewer of those monsters are created in the next generation. And that's why I think it's so important that we've got to start throwing charges on these parents. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.